the entire media decided that Florida's bill to protect parental rights in education was bad, all that bill said was no indoctrination in gender identity or sexual orientation from K through 3. That's all it said. Okay, that is the wording of the bill. It never said don't say gay. It didn't say any of that stuff. The entire media just lied about it. And they lied about it because there were activist groups who had decided to lie about it. And the media and the activist groups are one and the same group. And then it turned out that thanks to social media and thanks to alternative outlets like the Daily Wire, and thanks to the fact that there are shows like this one, people actually found out what's in the bill. And this turned out to be a wild negative for the left. And the more information that is out there, the worse it is for the left. So the media were basically counting on their monopoly to be able to cudgel everybody into place. They tried to bully Disney, and they succeeded in bullying Disney into taking a position on this bill. And then they went even further. They forced Disney to have an all-hands meeting at which members of the Disney crew basically came out and said that we are mainlining a bunch of left-wing garbage into children's programming. And the media covered this because this is supposed to be a good thing. So, for example, there's an article in the New York Times today called Disney, built on fairy tales and fantasy, confronts the real world. The entertainment behemoth spent decades avoiding even the whiff of controversy, but it has increasingly been drawn into the political partisan fray. By whom? By whom? Was it by us here on the right who just wanted to take our kids to Disneyland and not mind if our little girls were called princesses and our little boys were called princes? Was it us? The people who just want to be able to watch Encanto without being bothered with the vagaries of gender theory? Was it really us, or was it a bunch of activists in the media and activists inside the company who have decided that they wish to reorient Disney toward a quote-unquote not at all secret gay agenda, the direct words of one of the producers of the Proud Family over at Disney? I mean, the New York Times noticed that there's an active attempt in the children's programming to put this content in. Quote, last summer, Muppet Babies, a Disney Junior series for children aged 3 to 8, gently explored gender identity. Gently. Well, it's gently, according to the New York Times, so it's totally fine. You know, them saying that boys can be girls can be boys, and boys should wear dresses, that's gentle, according to the New York Times, so it really isn't the problem. Gonzo dons a gown, defying a directive from Miss Piggy that girls come as princesses and boys come as knights. Out Magazine wrote that the episode, quote, just sent a powerful message of love and acceptance to gender-variant kids everywhere. The fighting will undoubtedly continue, says the New York Times. The Disney Pixar film Lightyear, set to release in June, depicts a loving lesbian couple, while Thor, Love and Thunder, arriving in July, will showcase a major LGBTQIA plus minus divided by sign percentage sign tilde character. Okay, so it's the left that cudgeled Disney into doing these things, and they continue to try to cudgel Disney into doing these things. There's an article from a person named Sean Griffin for CNN Business. He's a professor for film and media arts at Southern Methodist University's Meadows School of Arts. He's also the author of Tinker Bells and Evil Queens, the Walt Disney Company, From the Inside Out. And his recommendation is that Disney has to halt all investment in Florida, which good luck with that since Disney World is in Florida. So really, good luck with one of your major profit centers halting all investment in that. I really, slow clap for this moron. Officially recognize gay days. So you should officially recognize and facilitate annual gay days so that children are subjected to as much sexual propaganda as humanly possible. These parks are designed, by the way, for children. Adults enjoy them. These parks are designed for children. And they must feature LGBTQIA2SLY plus minus divided by sign. More characters like this. LGBTQIA plus fans of Disney, says this columnist, have long identified with non-binary characters, such as Ferdinand the Bull and Peter Pan, and appreciated the campy flair of villains such as Captain Hook and Maleficent. Well, I mean, wow. Well, good for them. Okay, so they dragged Disney kicking and screaming into this fight. And Disney went into the fight because, number one, they have a bunch of woke employees, and their CEOs are a bunch of cowards, like abject, pathetic, yellow-bellied cowards. And so they got dragged into this fight. And they got dragged into the fight on the predicate that the media was basically just going to echo chamber this thing. They're going to keep reflecting wild leftist values, and nobody was ever going to notice. The problem is, people have started to notice because the left is so radical in their perspectives on gender and sexual orientation that the idea of this stuff for adults, let alone for kids, is totally insane. I'm just going to give you an example, by the way, of how radical the left is. So Jack Turbin is a child psychiatry fellow at Stanford Medical School, which is just, my God, and a trans youth mental health researcher who writes for the New York Times opinion section. He tweeted the other day, quote, puberty blockers, temporary, reversible. And by the way, the evidence is not that puberty blockers are temporary and reversible. That is not what the evidence shows. There are serious open questions about the long-term health effects of puberty blockers. He says, puberty blockers are more benign than going through a puberty that cannot be undone. If you go through puberty, you see, you should be able to be so independent of your own biological sex that if you go through puberty, that is your body doing violence to you, the secret Cartesian you that lives in your head. So puberty is more damaging to you than puberty blockers and then maybe carving a fake vagina into your body. If you can't see that, then you really need to reflect on your biases and whether you consider trans people at all when you form your opinions. Okay, my opinion is that it is a normal, natural process for the human body to go through puberty. I don't know when this became wildly controversial. It is not even close to controversial. What should be controversial is the garbage being spewed by the left on this particular topic. Because medical transition is not a Sneetch's star-on, star-off machine. There's a horrifying piece by a guy named Scott Nugent. And when I say a guy, I mean a transgender man. Okay, so a she who got a bunch of surgeries and hormone treatments to look like a he by Scott Nugent in Quillette. And here is what this person says. Quote, at a recent gathering, a friend's daughter told us, I'm probably trans because I don't like female puberty. This instantly got my attention because I have known this child for years. I never saw any indication of her being trans. I innocently asked why she would say that. Was it a joke perhaps? She replied, quote, I don't like my boobs growing, and Reddit says I'm probably trans. That night, I tracked down these Reddit exchanges and my jaw dropped when I saw how many people and organizations were heavily pushing the possibility of her being trans. But perhaps I shouldn't have been surprised, given the way such attitudes have gone mainstream. This includes the pediatrician mom whose recent opinion piece for the New York Times was titled, quote, What I Learned as the Parent of a Transgender Child. For kids Googling this subject, the overall effect is the equivalent of one big glitter bomb going off on their screen. I write all of this as a 47-year-old transgender man who transitioned 5 years ago. I'm also a parent to 3 teenagers. Though I admire the good intentions of parents who seek to support their children, I have serious concerns about reckless acquiescence to a child's internet-mediated self-diagnosis. Many older transgender folks share these concerns too. He says transgenderism, and I say he, she says transgenderism isn't a vague feeling or a distaste for stereotypical roles. It's a serious internal condition that causes you to want to become a member of the opposite sex. Medical transition, such as the kind I went through, can enhance an illusion that helps some gender dysphoric individuals navigate the world with more comfort. It did for me. It was the right path for me, but I wasn't born in the wrong body. I was born female, but I didn't like it. So I changed my appearance at significant monetary, psychological, and physical costs with plastic surgery and hormones. My sex never changed, though. Only my appearance changed. Anyone going through this is in store for a brutal process. Yet we now have thousands of naive parents walking their children into gender treatment centers, often based on internet-peddled narratives that present the transition experience through a gauzy rainbow lens. During my own transition, this person says, I had 7 surgeries. I had a massive pulmonary embolism, a helicopter life flight ride, an emergency ambulance ride, a stress-induced heart attack, sepsis, a 17-month recurring infection due to using the wrong skin during a failed phalloplasty, which is the creation of a fake penis that does not work, 16 rounds of antibiotics, 3 weeks of daily IV antibiotics, the loss of all my hair, only partially successful arm reconstructive surgery, permanent lung and heart damage, a cut bladder, insomnia-induced hallucinations, and frequent loss of consciousness due to pain from the hair on the inside of my urethra. All this led to a form of PTSD that made me a prisoner in my apartment for a year. Between me and my insurance company, medical expenses exceeded $900,000. Whenever you question the maximalist activist line on trans affirmation, you're directed to the World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, as a reference. But much of what you find there consists of vague phrases such as up to the doctor's discretion. Lupron, the hormone blocker some doctors seem intent on giving to kids like Tylenol, isn't even FDA approved to treat children with gender dysphoria. In 2001, the manufacturer pled guilty to fraudulent sales practices with regard to its marketing as a prostate cancer drug. We don't know yet its long-term effects off-label. Here's what we do know. The long-term use of synthetic hormone therapy shortens lives. Okay, so in other words, all of this is just nonsense pushed by the media, and they rely on the echo chamber in order to mirror that nonsense. And some of the actual medical data when it comes to gender transition is absolutely horrifying. There was a post that was going around yesterday. It was put up on Reddit, and it said this, quote, I have no clue what to do. Daughter can't get the bottom surgery and is becoming suicidal. Quote, hello, I've always been in support of my transgender daughter. When she was still a boy and started expressing a want to be a girl, I did everything right. Therapists, then puberty blockers, everything. Now she is 20. Everything is falling apart. We had to hold off on the body surgery because of cost, but now finally had enough and went and got several consults. All have said the same thing. The puberty blockers have left her with a micropenis. She has to get part of her vagina made with her colon. Well, one of her friends had that surgery. Even years later, it smells fairly colon-like. Obviously, my daughter is now distraught. She's in counseling, but is becoming worse and worse in her mental state, and I am frantic. On top of this, she has never had any sexual function, no urges, no erections, even when she tried masturbation to see if she could stimulate herself, nothing. The doctors say this may not change after her surgery. Her dating life is dismal as well. We knew it would be hard, but it's impossible. Well, yes, of course, because the actual data on this stuff is horrifying. And when people find out the actual data, it turns out that they are horrified by all of it. And this is why Disney is now backing off. This is why when I mention the sort of insanity that is pushed by the left and the fact that they have to control places like Twitter, because if they don't control Twitter, they can't control the narrative. This is the reality. So there's a dog that didn't bark in the Disney, quote unquote, don't say gay story. And that is where all the other corporations. Remember when there was a bill in Charlotte, North Carolina, there's a bill in North Carolina that basically said public restrooms have to be separated men, women. And there is such enormous backlash from a wide variety of corporations that they ended up sort of reversing the bill. You remember this? You remember that in Georgia, when a voting law passed, including voter ID, a multiplicity of organizations ranging from MLB to Coca-Cola decided to get involved. When it came to the quote-unquote don't say gay bill in Florida, very, very few organizations decided to say anything. You know why? Because it turns out that when the American people push back against the garbage, corporations don't want to be caught in the crossfire. And Disney is now starting to go silent. Disney is becoming completely silent in Florida. You know why? Because some Republican lawmakers in Florida are threatening to end a special tax district that has allowed the company to effectively govern the land on which Walt Disney World sits for decades. Members of Congress have called for Disney to be stripped of its original Mickey Mouse copyright, according to the Wall Street Journal. Politicians are campaigning for re-election on promises to stand up to Disney and other woke corporations they say are promoting messages and taking stands that put them out of step with the values of Florida parents and voters. Fans and park workers protested outside the company's headquarters earlier this month. Others have used social media to call for boycotts against Disney's parks. Disney is now going silent. They've decided to decline to comment on criticism from lawmakers. Inside the company, some executives have expressed disappointment. Disney has become politicized, had people familiar with their thinking. Good. Good. It turns out that when Americans respond to actual data and not the garbage spewed out by Reddit and Twitter, things get very ugly for corporations that decide to go along with the wokes. So, bottom line is, the reason that people in the media are so darn upset, like very, very upset with Elon Musk taking over Twitter possibly, is because they have to maintain the monopoly. And the echo chamber is so strong. How strong is the echo chamber, by the way? I'll finish on this, but how strong is the echo chamber? The reason that it is so strong, it is so strong that Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, knows she's among friends so strongly she can go out in public and disparage a member of the press from Fox News as essentially the worst kind of human, knowing that she will face very, very little blowback in any real terms. I mean, the lady already has a contract with MSNBC, and she's currently acting as the White House press secretary. Here she was a couple of days ago going after Peter Doocy from Fox News.
So we have to talk about Peter Doocy for 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. Is he a stupid son of a or does he play a stupid son of a on TV?
Okay. He works for a network.
Okay.
That provides people with questions that nothing personal to any individual, including Peter Doocy, but might make anyone sound like a stupid son of a
She thinks she can get away with that. Here's the thing. They've created a bubble of their own making. They can't get outside of that bubble. This is now Under the Dome by Stephen King. Bad things are about to happen inside that bubble for the Democrats. And if that bubble is ever burst, they will lose control even of the echo chamber they currently control. I hope you enjoyed that clip from The Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.